Sukuna did not become a good guy at the end of JJK, so let's talk about this and clear things up a bit. So this is of course in reference to the final scene between Sukuna and Mahito where he reveals that, you know what, if he got another chance to do this whole thing, perhaps he would choose a different path in life. So that's what people are saying. This is an assassination of Sukuna's character. He got talk no jutsu and became a good guy, and that I feel like is a gross mischaracterization of what this scene is talking about. The whole north versus south, right? And I've made a whole video on that, but it essentially means you're choosing to become somebody new. But again, that doesn't mean you just are a complete inverse of what you were, meaning Sukuna goes from bad guy to good guy, just in the same way that if Gojo had gone north, he wouldn't have suddenly become evil, right? It just means a stark contrast on one of your core beliefs. Like, you know, if Gojo had previously believed that he was only strong because of his abilities, him choosing to instead believe he was strong because of who he was would be him choosing a new path in life, right? So it doesn't have to be this like stark black and white situation. Sukuna did not become a good guy. He just recognized the merits of perhaps caring about others. But even the most sinister, evil people can care about others, right? They can have the people that they hold dear without becoming good guys. So in this case, I believe that is what Sukuna is realizing and referencing here. Perhaps he was wrong in only caring for himself and only, seeking after his own desires. Perhaps there is value in caring for others, which is the lesson that Yuji taught him, right? The one to teach you about love is. And I think this is far from character assassination and quite honestly is the exact opposite. Because prior to this development, Sukuna was one dimensional, right? He only cared for himself. He only acted after his own desires. He was just a typical bad guy. He was still a really cool bad guy, don't get me wrong, but he was one dimensional. This development gives him some depth. We find out that the reason Sukuna was the way he was wasn't because he was just, a man of his own stature. It was in fact more of a revenge play, more of him trying to spite the world for turning its back on him. Again, as a cursed, unwanted little wretch, he wanted to prove everyone else wrong. And the way he could do that was by championing and reaching the pinnacle of jujutsu, right? Because if you are the strongest, you are the best, who can tell you you're wrong, right? Clearly, your ideals and your passions and your perspective on life are correct if you're at the top. If somebody else thinks they're at the top, then you just defeat them and thus prove that you're right. A very might makes right mentality. We can very much see that this is the case in Sukuna's conversation with Yorozu, where she asks him, like, after I beat you, what will you give me? And Sukuna says, everything. Like, if you beat me, that is akin to death for me, because that means I have been proven wrong. So take whatever you want, do whatever you want, it won't matter to me. And I forgot to even talk about why I used this picture, but I love the journey that we go on because here at the start of the manga, we have Mahito the curse and Sukuna the king of curses just laughing at his misery because they just, think everything about Yuji's ideals and worldview are completely wrong. And they're just mocking him and taking joy in his pain. And we get another reminder of this moment about halfway through the story when Yuji says, I almost forgot. These guys are and will always be curses. And in this moment, Sukuna says, you should spend your lives stifling your misery. This is very indicative of his worldview, right? Because that's what he did. He spent his entire life pursuing strength in his own desires in order to stifle his own misery. Again, trying to spite the world that turned its back on him. Now juxtapose those two scenes with this final scene, which also centers around Sukuna and Mahito, but this time in their stark differences, because we have Mahito freaking out like a child, whereas Sukuna has realized the error of his ways and that perhaps there was another path. And Sukuna is capable of change and making that decision, whereas Mahito is not, because he truly is a curse, while Sukuna is in fact human. So yeah, Sukuna choosing North and recognizing that there are other worldviews and life paths out there that perhaps hold merit that he had previously, pushed to the side, does not make him a good guy. It makes him an interesting character.